Hey makeup friends, it is officially June, which means it is Pride Month. Now, I do want to say I think that Pride should be celebrated all year long and not just relegated to 1 month. However, this is known as Pride Month, so for today's video, I wanted to share with you the rainbow palettes that I have in my collection and share my thoughts on them with you. Let's get into it. As always, I want to start off by welcoming you back to my channel, or if you are new here, then hello and welcome. My name is Kara, and on my channel, we like to mix beauty, brains, and the occasional F-bomb. Now, we are going to talk about the eye makeup in just a moment, but I do want to start off by thanking Look Fantastic for sponsoring today's video. Now, I want to be clear in what that means. Look Fantastic has sent some products to me, which I am going to mention very briefly, but they have not paid me to do this video, and they have not instructed me on what I need to talk about or anything of that sort. The products that I received from Look Fantastic are the eyeshadows that I'm wearing here today, and that's a palette from Illamasqua. We are going to talk about that because it is a rainbow palette. So we'll talk about that in a moment. I also received this foundation here, which is the Aqua Foundation from Kojen Do, and I have it in the shade 113. I've been testing this out for the past few days, and I have to say I'm really impressed with it. I like the amount of coverage. I'd say it's a light to medium coverage. I really like the finish of it. It's what I'm wearing today. It just looks very natural and very skin-like once applied. I don't see the foundation sitting on top of my skin. It's not super glowy. It's not super matte. It just honestly looks like my skin, but elevated to the next level. So I've been loving this one. I also got 2 blush sticks from Look Fantastic. These are both from the brand Nude Sticks. Over here is the matte one, and it's in the shade Bareback. And then over here I have the Nudies Bloom, which is a bit more glowy, and I have the shade Cherry Blossom Babe. I do have both of them on right now. I put the matte one a little bit further out because it is a bit deeper, and then towards the center of my cheek I do have the Cherry Blossom one. So I am still in the process of testing these out. The initial application was nice. They are a little bit thicker because they're a stick and not, a cream foundation. So they do take a little bit more effort to blend out, but having said that, they do blend out very nicely. So far I'm impressed, but I'm gonna have to give you more fulsome thoughts on these down the road. Now, Look Fantastic has also been kind enough to give me a discount code to pass on to you guys, so I am just going to put it up on the screen here, and it will be listed down below in the description box along with a link to the Look Fantastic website. So once again, thank you to Look Fantastic for sponsoring today's video, and now let's move on to these eyeshadow palettes. So we may as well talk about this one here. This is from Illamasqua, and it is the Experimental Artistry palette. And like we're going to see with all of these palettes, it is very much a rainbow themed. And as I said, this is the one that I have applied to my eyes today. I've never tried anything from Illamasqua before, with the exception of, I do have their Hydra Veil primer, and I've tried one of their face powders or face highlighter. I can't remember what it was. It's been years since I had that. I remember panning it, but it was even before I had a channel. Like, it was years and years ago, so I don't really remember much about it. Anyways, my experience with this palette has been overall fairly positive. I did have a bit of trouble with the yellow, and I think what the main culprit was that my brush was still a little bit wet from having washed it last night, so I think that was messing it up. But aside from that, I do like that this is a bright palette, but it's not neon. Like, it's a little bit more muted in that sense. So this one just fits my own overall aesthetic a little bit better than some of the other palettes we might see coming up. But I like that you have the full range of the spectrum here. I like that there's a bit of a gradient option between these shades. It's not just, a primary yellow, primary blue, and then like an orange and a purple. I like that you have that gradient, and I did use I've used all but this shade here today. And I think that's what's really helped to make it as sort of seamless of a transition as I can achieve. And that's because I was able to blend out with these shades that kind of go in between. So I really do like the shade options that are in here. I like the pigmentation of the palette, and overall I don't have any complaints about this one. Now, I should back up and just say I haven't ranked these in any sort of way. I did sit down and try to, and I just could not. There's so many factors involved, and they all bring something different to the table. And frankly, they all could stand to have little tweaks here and there. So there's not one perfect rainbow palette that I have. So they all have pros and cons. And so I'm just going to talk about them in like no particular order. So next up, let's talk about this one here from Melt Cosmetics. And this is the Radioactive Palette. This one is a very pretty palette. I don't get a ton of use out of it, if I'm being perfectly honest, but when I have used it, I haven't really experienced any issues with it. I know that this palette did receive some mixed reviews, and I know some people have had a difficult time, especially with the really darker mattes, like this deep, deep teal here. However, I haven't experienced any issues with it. And while there are some shades that have a bit of a shimmer to it, the formula of these is much less crumbly than some of the other Melt Cosmetics shimmers in other palettes. So this one I find actually very easy to work with. I just don't often reach for it for whatever reason. Now, whereas the Radioactive palette is very concise with only 8 shades, we then move to this big beast over here. This is the Carnival 3 palette from Be Perfect, done in collaboration with Stacey Marie, and it's a beast. It's an absolute giant. Now, what I would say about this, first of all, it kind of overwhelms me, to be honest, because it's so huge, but once I move past that and I actually use these shades, the mattes are beautiful. There's such good pigmentation in here, and they do blend out very nicely. The shimmers, I find that they apply better with a finger than with a brush, but again, they look beautiful once they are on the lids. However, like I said, none of these palettes are perfect rainbow palettes, and to me, this one is missing yellow. There's sort of yellow adjacent up here, and there's certainly a mustard shade, but there's no like bright canary yellow, which I think would just help flesh it out a little bit more. It's very heavy on the purple side, and then there is a little smattering of blue over here, but I would have liked to see maybe a few more options with the blue, maybe like a sky blue or something to flesh out that gradient. And then of course a nice yellow would be appreciated as well. So I do like it. The quality is there, but again, it's not a palette that I reach for over and over. Frankly, rainbow eye looks are not something that I do on the regular. It's fun to play with every now and then, but for the most part in my day-to-day life, I reach for neutrals. So the fact that I have this many rainbow palettes is frankly a little absurd for me. However, I do like to play from time to time, and I also really do like testing out different brands, and this is the first time I'd ever used anything from Be Perfect, so there it is. It's not a complete waste of a purchase, but it is a giant palette, so just be aware of that going in, and if that's something that's going to overwhelm you or inspire you. Now, another palette that I have that offers a ton of selection is the Fade into Hue palette from Colourpop. So let's just take a look at this one. This one is very much more a traditional rainbow. So you have all of the colors of the spectrum in there, and there are a lot of different finishes. So there are matte shadows, there are more shimmery shadows, there are mattes with little bits of sparkle in it, and then there are pressed glitters in here. Now, while there is this like range of different finishes in here, how I would have loved to have seen this approached is to have it set out in much the same fashion as the Tati Beauty palette was. So a row of mattes, a row of the mattes with the little micro glitters in it, a row of shimmer, row of pressed glitters. I think that that would have been just very visually appealing. However, having said that, I do like that you have sort of this deeper and then moving up towards lighter. I like that you do have matte options for pretty much all of the major colors of the rainbow, although these two do have a little bit of like that micro glitter in it. I would have liked to have seen them all matte so that you could create an all matte look if you wanted to, and then top it with some of the pressed glitters or the shimmers, or just create whatever you wanted with it. But I think this entire row, if it had been truly matte, I think that that would have taken it just to the next level. At any rate, these do apply very nicely. They are up to the typical Colourpop standard. They're not my absolute favorite shadows to work with, but they are certainly serviceable and functional. They're not going to frustrate you. They blend, they last, all of that good stuff. Not to be outdone though, Colourpop also came out with their 5-pan rainbow palettes. So for whatever reason, I picked up all 5 of them. I like the look of colorful stuff. It's just that I tend to not reach for it very often. I can't explain my actions. Just go with me on this. Here they are. So what I like about this collection is that you can pick and choose. So if you look at a rainbow palette, but you know you're never going to wear the green shadows or whatever the color of choice may be. I know a lot of people shy away from blue shadows. you don't have to buy the blue shadows. You can just go with the purple or whatever color you most feel comfortable with. So I'm just going to quickly show you the shades that are in here. So obviously that's the purple one. And then there is a blue one. These have actual names, but like it's blue. Rumor has it, like nobody's going to remember that. It's the blue palette. And then there's a green one. And then this is, I guess, their take on orange, although it pulls far more corally. And then there is a pink one as well. And what I like in these palettes is that you do, again, have that mix of finishes. So there are shimmer shadows and mattes, although I'm going to quickly look again, but I'm pretty sure there are no pressed glitters in here. No, there are no pressed glitters. They each seem to have 2 shimmer shadows and then 3 mattes, which I think makes it very easy to work with. So I really do like the layout of these. And if I had to choose these over this, I would go for these ones. Okay, so the next palette then is Trendy in Tokyo from BH Cosmetics. And I'll show you the inside here. So this one has a mix of mattes and shimmers, but no pressed glitters, and I quite like that. I would like to see this laid out in the actual order of the spectrum. Like, I'm a big fan of Rouge Gabiv. I don't know why. I like when things are linear. I like when they follow a certain gradient. Maybe I have a touch of OCD. I don't know. I certainly have anxiety, so it's not a far cry. But at any rate, I would have liked it laid out a little bit differently, but that honestly is just my personal hang-up. It doesn't take away from the value of this palette at all. As with every other BH Cosmetics palette that I've worked with, the pigmentation of these mattes is so impressive, as is the blendability, and as is the longevity of the shimmer shadows. I love working with the BH palettes. Like, they're workhorses. They're dependable, they're consistent. I can pick one up and know it's going to perform every bit as well as the previous ones I've tried from them, and I really love that. Also, you cannot complain with the price point. I think the original price on these is maybe $18, but they have sales all the time on their website. So if you're interested in this, it is a permanent palette. So if it's currently listed for $18, like, give it a couple weeks and it'll probably go down to $12 at some point. So I would just check back to their website every now and then. But regardless, I will link the website down for you so that you can find it as easily as possible. All right, and then last but not least is sort of the OG rainbow palette, in my opinion. This one is coming from Colored Rain, and it's the Vivid Pigments and Shadows palette. And here she is. So this one is an all matte palette, and I think it takes a bit of a playful twist on rainbow. It's not your traditional yellow, orange, red, green, whatever. You have like a little bit more of like almost I don't even know how to describe that, to be honest. Almost like a rosewood kind of color. You've got a really deep teal over here, the navy. I really like the selection in here, and I like that it's different from most other rainbow palettes. And then the pigmentation of these shadows is insane. I mean, I'm just gonna briefly, one little swipe, same with this one. Like, they are so intense, and yet they blend out so nicely as well. So this is one of those palettes that, while I don't often wear it just on its own, I really enjoy having it in my collection because I can bring it in with other palettes, and because it just performs so well. It's one that I can't ever envision myself decluttering because I don't have a true matte deep green like that performs as well as this one does. So this is one that I highly, highly recommend, especially if you do like playing with colorful shadows, just to have it on hand in your arsenal. I think it's a great palette. So that rounds up my rainbow palettes. I do have colorful palettes as well, but I wanted to focus specifically on the ones that bring to mind rainbows. All right, and that is going to wrap up today's video, but before I sign off, I did want to say thank you once again to Look Fantastic for sponsoring the video, and I also wanted to let you know that I am going to be listing at least 2 different LGBTQ+ charities in the description box. If you're in a position to donate, I ask that you consider doing so. For my own part, I am going to be donating the AdSense earned off of this video within the month of June, so the more you guys like, comment, share, all of that kind of thing, the more people get to see this video and the more AdSense that it generates. So it all just sort of helps me help others. So thank you very much for that. And with all of that said, I'm going to wrap the video up here. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and I will see you in my next one. Until then, just be a decent human being. Bye for now.